we are going to talk about some parenting vocabulary. I want to make sure that you know how to pronounce these words. These are words that you will use with your friends, if you have children, grown children as well as younger children. They're words that you need with your doctor when you take your child to the child checkup. They're words that you need to know just to talk about parenting. So let's first talk about parenting styles. What style of parent are you? We have the authoritative parent. Sit down. Do what I tell you. That parent is an authoritarian. So this dad is very authoritarian. He tells his children what to do. They do it. No questions asked. He is authoritative, adjective. He is an authoritarian, noun. And then we have the permissive parent. Permissive is maybe the opposite of authoritarian. A permissive parent would let their kid do pretty much anything. Permissive. And then we have uninvolved parents. Uninvolved. There are other parenting styles, like helicopter moms who are over-involved. So we have uninvolved, we have over-involved. And then we just have involved parents. We have overly permissive parents. I think that pretty much all parents are on a spectrum. Authoritarian is the most strict. So the word strict is something you might need to know. And the opposite of strict is lax. A lax parent is a very permissive parent. And then we have over-involved to uninvolved. Such a parenting style might look something like, we might put it on a spectrum of sorts. Let's come up here and we can draw a picture. So I think it would look something like this. We would have a line that goes like this. And we would have maybe strict up here. And we would have lax down here. And we would have uninvolved. And we would have over-involved. Okay? So you can see we have a spectrum going on. Now, maybe in one situation you are a very strict parent, but kind of uninvolved. Or maybe you are over-involved and very strict. So you're up here. It would look something like this. You might be in this quadrant where you are strict and over-involved, or where you are lax and under-involved. You can be lax and over-involved, where maybe you just want to be your child's friend, or you can be strict and over-involved, where maybe you are that's the helicopter parent. I think at different times we are hopefully kind of in the middle here. It's important, I think, in parenting to strike a balance. We want to strike a balance. We want to strike a balance. Strike means to hit. We want to strike a balance. Balance. Okay? Not strike your child. Strike a balance or find a balance in your parenting styles. All right, I'm going to erase these. And we'll go to child development. Child development is how a child grows from little to adult. And human development would talk about how a human develops from a child to an adult to an old person. Human development. Milestones are the points along the path. Some of the milestones we look for as parents are, we might look for first steps when the child walks. We might look for, I was always very excited when they read their first book. Or a milestone might be a first date when they have a relationship. They start being interested in their romantic feelings as they grow older. You would be surprised at some of the milestones. I did not expect when my daughter lost her first tooth, I didn't expect that to be a milestone. I didn't even think about it. And one day at the table, her tooth fell out. She was shocked. I had not even considered it was a milestone. I hadn't talked to her about it. And then her tooth came out. She was very scared because she thought, what other parts of my body will fall off if my tooth falls off? And I had to assure her that this was very normal. We lose our teeth when we're babies, and it doesn't mean we lose our baby teeth. That's what they're called, and then we call them permanent teeth. Baby teeth come out. And so I had to assure her. I had to assure her. That means tell her it's going to be okay. Everything's okay. But these are some of the milestones that our children go through. Cognitive development. Cognitive is another word for brain. This is our brain. This is our brain. And we want to grow our brain. So we talk about cognitive development. Just like we had human development or child development, now we have cognitive development. We worry about how our children are growing mentally. We worry about how they are growing mentally. How they are growing mentally. So mental is another word for brain. Brain, mentally, we could say cognitively. Okay? Cognitive. Let's go to the next. We have emotional development. We're worried about our child's emotions. If they are happy, if they are sad, if they are nervous or worried. We worry about our children's emotions. I am currently learning a lot about emotional development. And I'm learning a lot of things I wish I had known when my children were young. I would have been a better mother. Because I could have helped them develop emotionally in ways that I can see now. So,
okay, we're going to break down the sentence that I just said. If I had known these things, I would have been a better mother. Okay, let's start with what are the simple sentences? Because when we have long, complicated sentences, and this one is not super long, but it is a little complicated. When we have long, complicated sentences, we often get confused about how things fit together. What is the meaning when the sentence just goes on for a long time? So we always want to start with simple sentences. And so I'm going to break this sentence down. I had known these things. That's one sentence. I would have been a better mother. That's another sentence. Okay? So, first of all, let's define what is the subject, verb, and object here. We have subject is I, had known is the verb, and it is in the past perfect tense. Okay? So this is past perfect. Okay? This is in the past perfect. Had is our past verb. If I had known, I should have written an N there. I can change that. If I had known. If I had known these things, I would have been a better mother. Okay? So here we also have the past perfect, but we have it with a modal. So, and these things, this is our, these things, that's our object. Okay? So, I had known these things. I would have been a better mother. So this is subject. Verb is this whole part. A better mother, that's our object. It's not really an object, but it's the complement. It is equal to the I. Okay, so now let's look at, this is also past perfect. Here's our, or no, this is present perfect. Okay, so this one is present perfect. Now, we often use the past perfect to show our conditionals. And because this is a conditional with the if, we are using past perfect. In our follow-up statement, our independent clause, it's in the present perfect. Now this is kind of complicated grammar. The reason we're using two different tenses is because we always use different tenses in the same sentence, even like here. We employ the sentences, or we employ the different tenses together to create the meaning behind the words. So, I would have been. Would expresses a desire, it is not really the past tense of will, although I know that that's a simple explanation for would, but it's not. Would is a conditional verb. It's a modal verb, and then it's followed by, here we go, the base form. So maybe we could say this is a past. It's followed by the base verb, and then we've got the perfect tense. I would have been a better mother. If I had known these things, I would have been a better mother. So this is a conditional sentence. We put it together. We can also say that this is called a dependent clause. Dependent clause. This is a dependent clause, and this is our independent clause. Okay. When we put an independent and a dependent clause together, they are known as complex sentences. Complex sentences. Okay? If I had known these things, I would have been a better mother. Now, we use this form. I'd like you to stop and kind of practice different ways to say these things. Okay, so let's create a few more. Let's get 2 sentences. So we'll get 2 sentences. If I had thought about your feelings, I would have used different words. I'm sorry. Okay, so here is another sentence that follows the exact same pattern. Okay, if I had thought. Now, before we had if I had known. Here we have if I had thought about your feelings. I would have used. Here we have I would have been. Here I would have used different words. I'm sorry. Let's try another one to kind of just give you some feeling for the way this works together. We would have left earlier. Okay, so here's one sentence. That's our independent clause. And then we have another sentence. If we had known the store closed at 7. Okay. So we can actually put this in we can do this 2 different ways. We have these 2 parts of the sentence. This is our this is our dependent clause with the if, because it's not quite a complete thought. If we had known the store closed at 7, you're still waiting. But we would have left earlier. We're not waiting for more information. Okay? So we can put this in 2 ways. We could say we would have left earlier if we had known the store closed at 7. Or we can say, if we had known the store closed at 7, comma, we would have left earlier, period. Notice I didn't put the comma when the independent clause came first. I put the comma when the independent clause comes second, and we start with the dependent clause, okay? So that statement is true. I'm going to write that statement down. So we have a dependent clause and an independent clause. I want those underlined. Okay. And the dependent clause comes first. We use a comma. Right now, these are all independent clauses. Okay. These are all independent clauses right now. But we're going to make 2 of them dependent clauses. We're going to make these because they have a little more information. Dependent clauses. Now it's a dependent clause. Okay? This is a dependent clause. And this is a dependent clause. Okay, and our independent clauses, we use a comma, we don't use a comma. Okay, so let's write the rule now. And I want you to see how we can move the dependent and the independent clause around. We can switch them around so we're not always saying the same pattern of sentence. We don't use a comma if the dependent clause comes second. If the dependent clause comes first, we use a comma. Okay? So let's now follow the rule. If the dependent clause comes first, we use a comma. We don't use a comma if the dependent clause comes second. Okay? So to make this correct, we'll take off the period and we don't need this capitalized. And here's our full statement. We don't use a comma if the dependent clause comes second. If the dependent clause comes first, comma, and this is not capitalized now because it's not the beginning of a sentence, we use a comma. See how that works? So let's go back to this. If we had known the store closed at 7, comma, now we're going to, we would have left earlier. Okay? So we can go back to this one. If I had known these things, I would have been a better mother. You can create this sentence in many different ways.